In the stillness of a June evening, the only sounds were the buzz of bugs and the soft panting of my dog, Buddy, beside me on the porch steps. I had paid for this 120 acres of quiet, hard-earned freedom with sweat and scars, escaping a life defined by orders and chaos. No bosses, no 4 a.m. calls. Just me, my dog, my goats. Queenie included, watching from her dusty patch, and a tractor older than my own knees. The kind of silence that lets your soul uncoil. But that peace was shattered when I noticed a white plastic monstrosity zip-tied to my fence like an unwanted growth. The sign screamed absurdity. Notice, property under review. Simmons Valley HOA compliance required. Annoyed, I ripped the cheap plastic down, tossed it into the burn barrel, and chalked it up to bored kids playing HOA cosplay. That was mistake number 1, underestimating the venom of petty power. Mistake number 2 was assuming it would stop. 2 days later, a dust cloud heralded an SUV the color of sterile gore parking halfway across my gravel drive. Out stepped a woman radiating forced cheerfulness. Pastel pink shirt, pressed car keys, mirrored sunglasses, and the ubiquitous clipboard clutched like a sidearm. "Hi there," she chirped, ignoring the land entirely, her gaze fixed on me like I was a stain to be removed. "I'm Elena Vance, HOA president. Just welcoming you. HOA. I blinked. Simmons Valley Homeowners Association. She smiled wider, a predatory glint behind the mirrors. Maintaining visual and environmental standards. I actually laughed. "Lady, the only visual standard out here is dodging cow pies." She didn't flinch, rattling off fake bylaws about fencing, livestock ratios, even noise thresholds. She handed me a manila envelope labeled "Welcome Packet. Action Required." Inside were pages of fabricated rules, diagrams of my barn circled in red. Apparently, my satellite dish was a visual obstruction. I burned it. The signs came back, bigger, laminated, nailed this time. Then came the men, 2 of them in their late 30s, matching car keys, vests with iron-on patches reading HOA Patrol. Walking my fence line with walkie-talkies like they were securing a border. They froze when I stepped off the porch. "You're trespassing," I said flatly. "Leave." They did, but one dropped his clipboard. Inside were crude patrol maps, properties marked with red X's. Mine was labeled Target Alpha, High Resistance. A chill, cold and unfamiliar on my own land, snaked down my spine. This wasn't a game. I called Deputy Miller. "Ellen Vance?" Miller sighed. "Oh yeah, we know her. Tried to cite the feed store for a rural noise disturbance last year. No such HOA exists, Ethan. But she's persistent. Watch yourself." Persistent didn't feel like the right word anymore. Calculating felt closer, and I realized I needed to prepare, not for kids, but for whatever came next. I spent the next few evenings rigging motion sensors along the fence lines, low and hidden in the scrub. Trail cams watched the gates and the barn approach, wired back to a monitor in the kitchen. Nothing lethal, just enough light and noise to announce that this land, my land, had teeth. I hoped it would be enough to deter playground bullies. I was wrong. The trouble I remembered from another life has a distinct sound when it's trying to be quiet. A measured crunch on gravel. Too coordinated for deer. Too light for a truck. I heard it before dawn 2 nights later. The air still and black. No panic. Just muscle memory taking over. Boots on. Yesterday's coffee reheated. A glance out the side window confirmed it. 5 shadows moving in a lazy arc towards the barn. Vests, car keys, headlamps bobbing like discount special forces. One clutched that damned clipboard again. A crackle from a cheap radio drifted on the still air. Team Alpha in position. Begin sweep. Target is presumed armed. Presumed armed. I almost chuckled. Osama bin Farmer, apparently. But the humor died fast. That old hum was back. The low thrum of awareness I hadn't felt since Kandahar. Threat assessment. Response protocols. I moved to the mudroom, slipped on the old field coat with the remote trigger in the pocket. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted to see their faces. They crossed the second fence line, confident, quiet. until one tripped the wire I'd buried shallow near the water trough. Click, then boom. Not an explosion, but a sudden, brutal flood of light. High-beam floodlights I'd mounted on the barn roof blazed on, turning midnight into noon. Simultaneously, sirens screamed from 4 different points, bouncing off the barn walls, creating a disorienting echo chamber. Chaos erupted. 2 guys dropped flat. One yelped and dove behind the trough. Another stumbled right into Queenie's enclosure fence. Bad move. My normally placid goat lowered her head, rammed him squarely in the thigh, and flipped him onto his back. She stood over him, head tilted, as if demanding an explanation. I stepped onto the porch, sipping my coffee, letting the cacophony wash over the scene. "Good morning, gentlemen," I said, my voice even. "Planning to announce yourselves this time, or were you hoping for the element of surprise again?" Clipboard guy staggered to his feet, trying to regain composure. "We are acting under HA Emergency Code 7A to seize non-compliant property." Code 7A. I raised an eyebrow, taking a step down. "Did y'all make that up in a coloring book? Smells like desperation and cheap ink." "We are empowered by community vote," another one stammered, fumbling with something that looked suspiciously like a taser. "This is a citizens' enforcement zone. We are within operational bounds." "You're in my yard," I stated calmly, my voice dropping. "Armed?" Threatening seizure under fake laws printed on a library computer. Suddenly, new lights, red and blue this time, pulsed down the driveway. Gravel crunched under official tires. Deputy Miller's cruiser rolled in, slow and loud. The HOA enforcers froze. Clipboard guy hissed, "Abort." Too late. Miller stepped out, squinting into the blinding lights, taking in the scene. One fake cop still being stared down by Queenie, another practically digging his face into the dirt. He looked at me deadpan. "Callahan, what the hell is this?" "Pre-dawn theater," I replied, gesturing with my mug. "Opening act. HOASWAT team." Miller turned to the group. "Hands where I can see them. Drop the clipboards." One actually tried to argue. "We're acting under civilian compliance jurisdiction." Miller strode over, ripped the cheap badge off the man's vest, and held it up. "Compliance Officer Tier 2. Buddy, you're lucky it doesn't say Malcop." He picked up a dropped binder. Leather-bound. Homemade. Simmons Valley Compliance Authority Internal Codex. He flipped through laminated pages, charts, violation classes. Class 1, fencing misalignment. Class 2, unauthorized rooster activity. He snapped it shut. "I've seen cults with fewer rules." He looked back at the trembling men. "Who told you to enforce this protocol?" "Karen," one finally mumbled. "Vance." "Of course." 3 arrests, 2 citations for trespassing. Later, Miller found another list tucked inside Vance's ridiculous codex. A spreadsheet. Names. Mine highlighted. Obstructionist. High threat. Others crossed out. Neighbors who'd sold up recently. Miller whistled low. "This isn't just cosplay, Ethan. It's coordinated, targeted." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I'll call in a fraud investigator, but you should know she's not quitting. People like this, they double down." He was right. The lawsuit landed 2 days later, delivered by a courier thick and smelling of expensive paper, filed by a real lawyer in the city. Hostile disruption of a sanctioned community action. Undermining volunteer enforcement personnel. Intentional obstruction. It was impressively worded nonsense. Someone with deep pockets was funding Elena Vance. Tucked inside, separate from the legal jargon, was a typed list. Potential witnesses, contacts. One name jumped out, circled with a single chilling word next to it. Informant. Mark Jenkins. The neighbor who'd helped me raise my barn. Shared beers on my porch. My gut clenched. The betrayal felt colder than the pre-dawn air. I confronted him later that day, finding him fixing a fence post, deliberately not looking towards my property. I didn't raise my voice, just held up the paper. "Mark, what the hell is this?" He wouldn't meet my eyes, his knuckles white on the post driver. "Ethan, She said they threatened things. His voice trailed off into the dirt between his worn boots. Said if I didn't report on who came and went, I'd be next on the list. Non-compliant. He finally looked up, misery etched on his face. I got kids, Ethan. A mortgage. I just nodded once, a bitter taste in my mouth, and walked away. Vance didn't stop there. She launched a full-blown propaganda campaign. Flyers appeared staked along the county road. Aerial shots.